Good morning. I'm Diane Russell, and I am the chair of the UUSM Stewardship Committee. And today marks the official close of our stewardship drive for the upcoming fiscal year. And what a drive it has been. We are deeply grateful to everyone who has pledged to sustain this special community. Together, you have committed $417,000, 84% of our goal. If you haven't had the chance to pledge, please know that your participation is always welcome. We began this drive with a festive lunch and celebration in the social hall and followed that with a gathering for our first ever Sunday brunch service, sharing a meal and rich conversation about our hopes for the future of UUSM. Today, we close that circle with a reverse collection. In a moment, we'll be passing something out rather than taking something in. Each small gift contains a sweet, a simple symbol of the warmth and sweetness that defines this community, and flower seeds, carrying our shared hope that we will continue to grow and thrive and bring beauty into the world. The theme of this year's drive is "In love we gather, in gratitude we give." As the Sopranotes Quartet lifts their voices and you receive your gifts, I invite you to hold that theme in your hearts, to reflect on the love we share with one another and the love we strive to carry out into the broader world, to feel gratitude for this community of people who show up for each other, who wrestle with hard questions, who refuse to look away from the world's pain, and who believe that transformation is possible. Thank you for your generosity, your presence, and your commitment to this beloved community. Members of the Stewardship Committee will now pass out the gifts. If you would like a sweet that is gluten-free, take one with a yellow ribbon. And if you brought something that you intended to put in the basket, since you didn't know that this was a reverse collection, the ushers will take it at the end of the service. Thank you so much.
All right, so just a little bit of an intro, first things first. I just want to say I first had the pleasure of listening to, hearing the Sopranotes in person over a year ago, where they were performing at a barbershop event in Davis. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Later, more recently, I learned that they're all seniors. I was like, okay, well, time's ticking. Got to get them into UUSM before it's too late. And usually, you know, when I mention that they were seniors to a couple of folks and they were a barbershop quartet, that usually means something else. But they are seniors in high school from the peninsula. We've built them up so much over the course of this service and also that I have over the past few months. You've all picked a great service to come to, but all I ask you to do, Sopranotes, is to be yourselves today. As you take us on this musical journey for the rest of the service, this is Elaine, Mira, Kayla, and Kayla, the Sopranotes.
I chair will get me in. All I do is pray the Lord above will let me walk in the sun once more. Can't go on. Everything I had is gone. Stormy weather, since we ain't together no more. It keeps raining all the time. I hear it since he went away. The blues, they walked in and they met me, a lone gal just to cry, feeling so down, all by myself now. All I do is pray the Lord up above will let me walk in the sun once more. Can't go on. Now everything is good. Stormy weather. Since my man and I ain't together. We ain't together. So weary all the time. I've been so weary all the time. I've been. Don't feel no better. Stormy weather. Been so weary since I lost that man of mine. Stormy weather all the time. I'm so sad and weary all the time.
That was incredible. Thank you so much. So we are hoping that we're going to see a 2-minute video, but I'm going to do an intro before that. Does it look like we're going to be able to do our video? Oh. Okay. Well, so I'm going to do a little intro here, and then we'll see if our uploading of the video worked. It was like race against time. I felt like I was in a Mission Impossible movie. I wore my all black as a character. So in any event, the video, if we're able to play it, includes quotes from Native Americans about creation and the environment. Photos are by our own Jim Musselman. Jim, raise your hand. Quotes are from Winona LaDuke's book, All Our Relations. And production is by Audra Miller. But first, I'm going to share a couple visuals showing sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. to get an idea of the many ways that our choices affect the interdependent web of existence. First slide, please. So this is EPA data from 1990 to 2022, so it hasn't been altered by the Trump administration. Greenhouse gases are mostly emitted from burning fossil fuels for energy. The largest source is for electricity generation, 30%, the red on top. Then transportation, the blue at 24%. Industrial processes, 23%, the purple. Residential and commercial energy use, the green at 13%. And finally, agriculture at 11%. So electricity generation is mostly burning natural gas and coal to heat and cool buildings. So our choice of clean electricity providers for our home electricity sources can make a difference. The largest contributor within the transportation sector is trucks, including SUVs, pickups, and heavy-duty transport trucks. So all those Ford F-150s have an impact. The impact from commercial and residential energy use comes from natural gas for cooking and heating and refrigerants leaking from HVACs and refrigeration systems. Our choice of energy-saving electrical appliances and our mindful use of heating and cooling can also make a difference. Next slide. So within agriculture, the primary source of greenhouse gas is livestock and manure and soil management, which all emit methane. And within livestock, you can see that by far beef production is the largest source. And within crops, rice is the largest source due to decomposing material within rice fields that emit methane. What we eat and how far it is transported are things to consider in our impact on the environment. Lastly, forest and land management accounts for a 13% net reduction in greenhouse gases, acting as a carbon sink. So supporting responsible land management and supporting our national and state parks makes a difference. Again, please find Carol and sign that letter during Connections time. With that background, are we able to see our video?
songs that are depressing and longing, but sound so beautiful. But I'm like, it's kind of fitting for Earth Day sermon, right? I know we're going to get there, but I was thinking of the arc of what I'm trying to do in my message today. I'm like, yeah, a lot of times when we think about climate change and climate justice, there is a bit of sadness and longing for something else. That's the story we've been told about it. It's a story about rising temperatures and melting ice, of loss and urgency, of things that have already gone too far past the point of return. And while that story is true, it's not the only story we can tell. There's another question we can ask, which leads us to tell the other side of the story. And so we should not just ask ourselves, how bad is it going to get? But we should also be asking ourselves, what if we get it right? Now, I've been sitting with that question because I've been reading this book that's called What If We Get It Right? Visions of Climate Futures, a collection of voices imagining what a just and thriving climate future could actually look like. And this is not a work of fantasy or fiction. It's not a denial of what is happening, but it's a grounded and practical creative exploration of what is still possible. And what the essays and interviews and poems in this book remind us of is that the future is not simply something that happens to us. It's something that we're shaping every day with our choices, our habits, our relationships, and our communities. And yet, so many of us feel stuck when it comes to climate justice work. We care, we understand the urgency, we feel the weight of it, and still it can be really hard to know what to do. I mean, what can I do? Because the scale of the problem is massive, right? And our individual lives can feel so small by comparison to that. And I felt it, and I'm sure many of you have felt it too. That moment when you're reading an article or hearing a report or watching a documentary about polar bears or plastic in the bellies of seabirds, these things elicit feelings that mix deep concern and sorrow, often with a profound sense of helplessness. And we wonder, what difference can I actually make? And then quietly, without noticing, we often just return to our daily routines, too stunned to even approach the task at hand. And it's not because we don't care, it's just because we don't know where to begin sometimes. I don't know how to save a polar bear. I don't know how to prevent the part of San Mateo that I am currently living in from being flooded with water in estimated 30 to 50 years. What can I do? What can I do? So when I worked at Minnesota Valley UU Fellowship, our church used a recycling program called Ridwell. Ridwell is a subscription recycling program. They pick up things that can't be recycled through your city or municipality. Things like plastic films and bags and crinkly plastics, like granola bar wrappers and chip bags. They take batteries and electrical cords. A couple times a year, they take styrofoam. Woe is right. And you can give them your old clothes, too, and they'll repurpose them into other things. Now, this was brought to the attention of the church by a congregant there. And so I have to say this, because Ridwell doesn't have a commercial program. They just have a residential program. But the church took it on a small scale and kind of modeled it and showed people what it was like. Church is great at this, right? Modeling things that people can take home to do, in hopes that others might subscribe to the service. And within our congregation, people did subscribe to the service. And some people shared a box with their neighbor, and so it did catch on. Now, because Emily and I lived in an apartment and not a house in Minnesota, and because in Minnesota, the doors that go outside of your apartment are actually on the inside of the building, unlike here, where the doors for your apartment go directly outside because it's beautiful. Because of that, Emily and I got used to taking our extra recyclable things to church and putting them in the Ridwell box. And then we moved here, and we got our new apartment, and our door was outside. And after a couple of months of living here, we couldn't live with ourselves anymore because we weren't recycling the things that we were used to recycling back in Minnesota. So we subscribed ourselves to Ridwell, and they pick up at our new place every other Tuesday. Now, I know that this does not sound like a dramatic world-changing decision. It's not a nationwide protest or shutdown. It's not a policy change. It's not even visible except to our very immediate neighbors who live in our apartment community, which is gated. So, the public, general public don't drive by and wonder what it is. But the whole process has changed us as people, Emily and I. Now, I will say this. There is a brief phase when our home started to feel less like a living space and more like a highly disorganized recycling center. There was a time when our kitchen space was filled with sorting vessels, especially in our old apartment, one for stretchy plastic, one for crinkly plastic. Of course, this is all right next to the compost bin. Friends, we even got to the point, we are to the point, when we go on trips, if we have those recyclables on the trips, we put them in our car and bring them home with us to recycle them. Yep. And when guests come to our house, as Erica might attest by the end of the week, they're often confused when they have something to throw out, and my sister hates to figure out how to throw something out when she's at our place because she doesn't know where it goes, because we have a very detailed system. So I just want to confess to you that we have become those people. Maybe you are those people in your own context, but we have become those people. But honestly, that moment of humor is also a moment of recognition, because it recognizes how we see ourselves in the world, because something in us has shifted. Not just in what we're doing, but how we are seeing the impacts of our daily living. We've become more attentive. We've become more curious. We're more connected to the flow of things in and out of our lives. Emily, who's here today also, calling you out a little bit, has become a little bit of a dumpster diver in recent months. She's really good at it. Folks in our apartment complex put things out all the time that they're not using anymore. And because we think differently, we're like, oh, can that be repurposed? Or can that be taken to the Goodwill? Or heck, there was one day I did it. There were 2 boxes of unexpired food. Somebody had just cleaned out their apartment and left, and all this food was there. So what did I do? Of course, I went through and saw what was still good, and I brought it here to put in our free pantry. There's no reason for that to go in the garbage. So we both started thinking and acting in new ways. What are we bringing into our home? What are we sending out into the world? What systems are we participating in, often without even realizing it? And let me be absolutely clear, this in no way, shape, or form makes us perfect. We don't have illusions of grandeur because we recycle in ways different than other people. We still generate waste. We still make choices we wish we could do differently, driving an SUV, although it's an economical SUV, if that matters. It's a Honda, I think it helps. But we're no longer on autopilot all the time, right? We're participating more consciously, trying to do our part. And I think that's where transformation begins. Because climate action isn't only about massive sweeping change, though we absolutely need that too. It's also about these small, tangible, meaningful shifts that reconnect us to our own agency. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Well, first little secret is that we're running long today. I'm going to let you in on another secret that many of you already know. Sometimes the things we do as individuals do end up having a bigger effect on the systems that are around us. In many cafes and casual eateries nowadays, you'll find a place for your compostables, right? Right alongside that, there's usually recycling, right? That's because consumers were doing that themselves, and they wanted that in the places they went. Also, many of your favorite restaurants now have more than one plant-based option for people to choose from. Poor vegetarian friends of ours used to have nothing but French fries and salads, and now they've got a plethora of things. And there's a plethora of things for us to choose, too, right? So that we can maybe make more plant-based choices in our lives, those of us that are omnivores. Like, we, too, can participate in that, lowering our carbon footprint. All of this reminds us that we're not separate from the problem, but more importantly, it reminds us that we are not separate from the solution. And so I want to invite you, not right now, but perhaps maybe later today or sometime this week, maybe Wednesday, which is Earth Day itself, to spend a little time with the Venn diagram that's on the back of your order of service. And I think we have a slide of it. Which comes out of this, the website for this book. But this invites us to imagine our role in climate action as an intersection of three things: what brings you joy, what you're good at, and what the world needs. Not as another task or assignment to be forgotten, not as something to get right, but as a gentle act of reflection, a wondering, a spiritual practice, if you will. Because I think this question has the power to shift how we understand our place in this work. So often when we talk about climate change, the conversation becomes about obligation. What should we do? What are we failing to do? What are we being asked to give up? And while those questions matter, that, again, is not the whole story. So this framework of what if I get it right begins somewhere different, begins in joy. What brings you alive? What connects you to this world in a way that feels meaningful and sustaining and real? Maybe it's being outside, maybe it's walking on the coast, feeling the wind, watching the light change at the end of the day. Maybe that's what gets it for you. Maybe it's cooking or gardening or creating something with your hands. Maybe it's organizing and teaching and advocating and caring for others. Where is your aliveness? And then the second part of the circle, what are you good at? Not in an abstract sense, but in a real embodied sense of your life. What skills do you have? What knowledge, what relationships, networks, resources? Because each of us carries something useful. And the third, what does the world need doing? And you don't have to look far for this one right now, because there are plenty of needs around us in our communities, in our ecosystems, in the systems that shape our lives. And somewhere in that diagram, in those three circles, there's your place. Not someone else's, yours. And I think this is where our UU values tie in as well, because we're a people that affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every people, which we know means that our life matters and our voice matters. But guess what? It also means that our contributions matter, right? And we value justice, which means that we know that the work before us is not only environmental, but it's also economical and social and relational. And so you need to know that when you're cleaning up a highway or choosing more plant-based meals, you're expanding how to manage waste in your house. You're doing justice work. You're doing justice work. And of course, as Lisa mentioned when we gathered this morning, we affirm the inherent web of all existence, which means nothing we do is isolated. We belong to one another, and we belong to this earth. So when we ask ourselves, what is my role in climate action, what we are really asking is, how am I called to live out these values in this moment and in this life? And the answer is not the same for everybody. For some, it's going to be advocacy. For others, creativity. For others, care. For some of us, having ridiculous recycling programs in our homes that matter. Sometimes it looks like learning, like watching the film together later today. The reading guide for this book asks a question that I love, and it's, what is your favorite climate solution? Not everything that has to be done, just what is the one that comes out to you? Because that's where you need to start, where you'll stay engaged. Start with what you love. Climate justice work is not about you doing everything. It's about doing something that is yours to do. And this is where transformation lives, not as a far-off idea, but as practice, a choice we make again and again to stay engaged, to stay connected, to stay open to possibility. And then we can return to that question, what if we get it right? What if we choose connection over disconnection? What if we choose care over indifference? What if we choose courage over despair? What if we trust our small actions and that they all add up and do make a difference? Not all at once, not perfectly, but faithfully. What if we get it right? Let's make it so. Amen. As we go from this place today, may we still carry the question, what if we get it right? Not as a burden, but as an invitation to notice and to care, to participate in sharing and shaping what comes next. May we remember that the work before us is not ours alone. We are held in the web of life, connected to one another, to this earth, and to generations we will never meet. May we find the courage to act when we can. May we find the humility to learn where we must. And may we find compassion to stay in relationship even when the work is hard. And may we trust that small acts offered with love can ripple outward in ways that we cannot see. So go in peace, go in connection, grounded in your place of belonging, and go in care for this frail, fragile, and beautiful world. Amen.